My name is Hardeep Ahdi. I am a second-year internal medicine resident at Advocate Lutheran General Hospital in Park Ridge, Illinois. And my poster presentation is on a medication-induced osteonecrosis of the jaw, a review of cases from the Food and Drug Administration Adverse Event Reporting System, also known as the FAERS database. Now, before I begin, I just wanted to introduce a little bit of the topic of osteonecrosis of the jaw. It's essentially defined as the presence of exposed bone in the mouth, which fails to heal after appropriate intervention over a period of 6 or 8 weeks. Osteonecrosis of the jaw is in fact a rare but serious adverse drug reaction, and it's commonly associated with bisphosphonate and denosumab therapy. There was a prior research that utilized an online public database, the FAERS database, that explored this adverse drug reaction. And as far as the FAERS database, a little bit of background about that, it is a large database of voluntarily reported adverse drug reactions associated with post-marked FDA-approved medications, as well as natural substances, vaccines, and medical devices. So that data, that prior research data, identified and described several novel medications associated with ONJ. Now, as far as my study, our study actually aims to build upon the prior findings, reporting trends of medication-induced osteonecrosis of the jaw over time, and identifying newly described medications. As far as our materials and methods, by May 2021, the FAERS database contained a total of 22,002,078 reported cases of adverse drug reactions. So we searched the FAERS database for all reported cases of medication-related osteonecrosis of the jaw from 2010 through 2021. Cases lacking patient age or gender were excluded. Only adults 18 years and older and reports from healthcare professions were included. Duplicate cases were subsequently removed. And we analyzed the top 20 medications and identified and described those for 2 different time periods. Time period 1 being from April 2010 through December 2014, and time period 2 marked as April 2015 through January 2021. Now, in the middle of my poster, below the results section, I've illustrated a flow chart of our inclusion criteria. So during that time frame, 19,668 total cases were downloaded, of which 8,253 cases were seen in time period 1, and 11,415 cases were seen in time period 2. Now, within time period 1, 5,121 cases were excluded, of which 686 cases had missing gender demographics. 1,879 cases did not fulfill age criteria. 453 cases were reported by non-healthcare professionals, and 2,103 cases were removed because of their duplicacy. During time period 2, 5,639 cases were excluded, of which 1,276 cases had missing gender demographics. 2,016 cases did not fulfill the age criteria. 539 cases were reported by non-healthcare professionals, and 1,808 cases were seen as duplicates. So by incorporating our inclusion criteria, we ultimately ended up with 3,132 cases for time period 1 and 5,776 cases for time period 2. Now, when we further analyzed this and looked at the demographical distribution, for time period 1, 64.7% were female and 35.3% were male, and the average age was 66.1 plus or minus 11.1 years. For time period 2, 64.3% were female and 35.7% were male, and the average age was 69.2 plus or minus 11.5 years. Now, before I describe and mention these novel medications that our study had found or discovered by incorporating our inclusion criteria, I just thought I'd give just a general statement of some background information. So chemotherapy has been implicated in previous case reports of medication-related osteonecrosis of the jaw, but prior studies had described that there was a clear association remains difficult to demonstrate as the majority of the patients with underlying bone disorders were simultaneously receiving chemotherapy and bisphosphonate medications. So it can be theorized that bisphosphonate-related osteonecrosis of the jaw may be worsened by concomitant anti-neoplastic therapy. So with that being said, some of these novel medications include, for time period 1, lenalidomide, which is an immunomodulating agent with anti-neoplastic properties, corticosteroids, which we've commonly two of which we had noted were prednisolone and dexamethasone, both of which have been commonly used as adjunctive therapy for malignancy treatment. Docetaxel and paclitaxel, both of which are described as the taxane class of medications, which are microtubule targeting medications that help inhibit cancer cell proliferation. Next one is letrozole, which functions as an aromatase inhibitor, ultimately suppressing the amount of plasma cell or plasma estrogen levels. Methotrexate, which is another immunomodulatory agent that has the ability to modulate cell-specific signaling pathways. Imatinib, which is another unique tyrosine kinase receptor inhibitor, which has its known anti-angiogenic properties. Teriparatide, which is a human recombinant peptide. However, we believe with its mechanism of action, it has been shown to enhance bone via its anabolic effects. So we believe this was mostly used in the treatment of medication-related osteonecrosis of the jaw, as opposed to a causative effect. Some of the novel medications seen in time period 2 include palbociclib, which is a cyclin-dependent kinase 4 and 6 inhibitor. Pomalidomide, which is a thalidomide analog with anti-neoplastic, anti-angiogenic, and immunomodulatory properties. Radium-223, nivolumab, which is a PD-1, which targets the PD-1 receptor. And lastly, cabozantinib, which is another unique tyrosine kinase receptor inhibitor with anti-angiogenic properties. Now, if you look at the top right of my poster, I've listed the top 10 drugs for each of the time periods. And as you can see, zoledronic acid was the most frequently reported medication associated with osteonecrosis of the jaw for time period 1, whereas for time period 2, it was in fact denosumab that was reported as the most frequently reported medication that caused ONJ. Now, the majority of the medications that were listed in the top 10, they're actually pretty similar for both time periods. However, they were just rearranged in different order, which one further supported the fact that a lot of these mechanisms were contributory to ONJ, such as bisphosphonates, the RANKL inhibitor, like denosumab, medications with anti-angiogenic properties. And it was interesting to see that we were able to see a little bit of a novel medication, such as lenalidomide, as listed as number 6 for time period 1. And it was shown to be seen in time period 2 as well, listed as number 5. So overall, with our study, we did incorporate a more stricter inclusion criteria compared to the prior research with removal of duplicates. It did lead to overall fewer identified cases of medication-related osteonecrosis of the jaw when compared to the prior research. However, we believe that our research was able to provide a more reliable analysis of MRONJ reports to the FAERS database and with improved accuracy. Now, as I mentioned briefly before, previously identified drug classes with ONJ included bisphosphonates, RANKL inhibitors, such as denosumab, anti-angiogenic agents, such as bevacizumab, and mTOR inhibitors, such as everolimus. And the proposed mechanism had been suspected to be related to anti-resorptive properties and bone remodeling impairment via alterations in the formation of new blood vessels. So overall, our study actually identifies cases of newly described drugs and drugs classes that were not previously seen in literature, and provides a further description of various medications associated with O and J. Now, moving forward, further evaluation of the mechanism of action of these medications, including their anti-angiogenic properties, immunomodulation properties, cytotoxicity effects, and hormonal effects may shed some light on their potential to contribute to this adverse drug reaction moving forward. Now that ends my poster presentation. If anyone has any questions, my email is listed at the bottom right corner of my poster. Thank you very much for your attention.